start our yin class today sitting and with just a little bit of rocking, side to side, forward and back, and then maybe some gentle twisting. These are just the three main movements of the spine: side to side, forward and back, and that gentle twisting. And I just want to warm the hips a little bit. We're gonna be holding our poses as usual for 2-3 minutes. And I don't know if you've noticed, but I've stopped using a timer. So it's taken me almost 5 years to get there, but it feels pretty good. I do watch the clock. So that is just to give you even more permission to stay a little longer, come out a little sooner. It's a little more intuitive. So definitely listen to that inner voice and what it is telling you to do, especially that voice. For me, she's about 5 years old, and she'll say, "Hey, why are we still here? When are we leaving? Are we there yet?" So listen to her, give her a little hug, ask her what she needs, and move through this practice mindfully, kindly. And we will be doing a little bit of loving kindness work, starting, of course, with ourselves. And I'll be reading mostly today from the Yin Yoga Kit, the Practice of Quiet Power by a man named Biff Mithoefer. I'm inspired by his work today, so we'll be talking about the benefits of the poses, stuff like that. So here's our first pose. Hopefully you feel a little bit warmer, just a little bit more lubricated. We're going to do half butterfly, so one foot tucked in, one leg wide. And you could have that leg more straight in front of you, leaning down the leg, really waking up that hamstring. Or you could take it wide, lean down the middle, open up the inner leg. Or you could turn toward the leg and get a little bit of a stretch on the back. And in fact, I think I'll do a little bit of all three. So I'm going to start leg forward. And if you find one that you just love, just stay there. Also a reminder, I'm sitting up on a blanket. It's always a good idea to keep the spine from rounding too much at the base. So as we sit up tall, take a breath, and then lean forward, hinting right at the hip crease, finding that back of the leg stretch. And you're going to just kind of play with that sensation in the back of your leg. For the most part, I keep my toes curled back, which feels pretty good. Sometimes eventually, over the holding of the pose, I might soften the foot more. Also, if you don't have any kind of osteoporosis or osteopenia, you can feel free to lower your head, rounding the spine, if that feels right to you. But for most of us, it's always safer to just keep those shoulders lifted. Of course, you can also use blocks. You can use blankets. You can kind of prop yourself up and lay your head down on something there as well. Keep breathing nice and deep, just enjoying the sensation of the stretch. This practice is going to be all about that sensation. Where do you feel that stretch for yourself? Where do you want to feel it? Where does it feel good? Where does it need adjusting? So let's talk a little bit about this half butterfly pose. The benefits of this pose is that it is a stretch for the whole backside of the body. It stretches the hip. In a moment, we're going to move into that inner leg groin stretch. And of course, the hamstrings. So happy days there. We're just going to take a few more breaths in this variation. Gently rising up, taking those hands behind you so you feel some support, keeping the spine long. Maybe bend the knee for a moment and rock just a little, and then slide the leg out wider. See how that feels to you. Leaning forward again. Now the stretch has moved into the inner leg, the groin. Rolling the shoulders back, opening the heart. This is where you might make a little tower with blocks to support your head. That might be okay if you have a little bit of osteoporosis, because hopefully the blocks will be supporting the weight of the back. But if you're feeling it in that low back, then you're going to come up and come right back into the fold itself, just folding at the hips. And let's just breathe again, moving into that sensation awareness along the leg, maybe the back or the hip. Just validate for yourself where you feel that. You're not feeling it in the wrong place. You're feeling it in the place that you feel it. And again, the foot might be flat for a while and then slowly soften. Maybe a few more breaths here, and you might decide that you like this spot and you're going to stay here longer. Or you might slowly sit up and turn toward the leg and lean in that direction. Coming into more of a gentle twisting. Now this one, for those of us who might have osteoporosis, instead of turning your heart toward that leg, I'd rather you turn the right hand toward the leg, the right shoulder, and come into more of a side stretch so that your back stays fairly flat, like as if you were against a wall behind you. Rolling the shoulder back, that's going to be the safest place for you to be, so that there's that gentle inward arching in that low back, a little lifting in the heart. So lots of different variations here, lots of ways to stay safe and to feel that stretch. I think this might be my favorite one. Notice which one you liked better and feel free to go back there or find that one again. As you breathe, it should be just a little bit difficult because of the depth of the stretch, but then maybe lift up a little, get that breath a little freer. Always welcome to add a little rocking or sink deeper into stillness. You might even add a little ujjayi breathing here. See if you can feel your breath in your throat. We're going to take 3 more deep breaths. Make sure you use your arms to help support your rising upward. Go slow. This is where the ache is there for us to tell us we've done a little bit of yoga there, a little bit of yin, leaning back. What I'd like to do from here is lay back into tree pose on our back. So that might mean bending the knees, rocking a little, rolling over to one side, keeping that spine safe. And then that same knee that's been wide the whole time is going to be wide on our back, and the other leg that was open is going to stretch down the mat. So it's a similar shape, but a little bit different. We're just moving through that range of motion through the hip socket. And the arms just relaxing. Feel free to open the eyes and look around for a while and then close them and go inside and just ride the rhythm of your breath. You might take an extra deep breath every now and then. Feel free to slide block under the leg or a blanket, anything you might need to support you. It's fine to have a blanket under your head or anywhere else that you think it would feel right. If you'd like to begin to slowly stretch in the shoulders, feel free to widen the arms, sliding them through the angel wings in a big wide circle until maybe they're over your head. Stretching here, you might flatten up the foot of the long leg and take a nice long stretch along that edge of the body. As you're ready, palms might slide together, resting on your forehead for a minute, sliding down your nose, your chin to your heart. Pausing there for a moment of love, kindness, gratitude. Anything that rises into your heart for a moment. And the hands float back down beside you. The foot that is connected to that wide open knee starts to flatten onto the floor. You can rock that knee a little bit and then slide the other foot onto the mat. Rock the knees. Feel free to stretch the knee out that has been bent this whole time. Stretching it out, rocking and rebending, rolling, moving in any way that feels right to you. Allowing the body to move again, just slowly and gently. We don't want to warm up the muscles. We just want to lubricate the joints. Just allow them to get that food that they need for life, for healing, for regeneration. That's a long time for that knee to be bent and lots of different positions for that hip. So it's going to take a while to let that sensation dissipate. And we are going to come back up onto a seated position in a moment. Just take your time knowing that that's where you're going. You might look around for your blanket again. Slide it up under your hips, under your bum there. And we're going to stretch out the leg that was bent that whole time and bend the other knee. And we'll go through that variation, those 3 variations again. Now, if you realized on the other side which one you liked, you're always welcome to do that. I'm going to start legs straight ahead, the long leg straight in front, and the other knee bent. Nice and tall with the spine. Let's take a few deep breaths up and down the back. You're welcome to lean into that stretch when you're ready. And you might need a little prop up under your knees, especially under that one knee that is in front of you, especially if you're feeling it too much behind the knee, or you might actually need it under the other knee as well. You're welcome to put a block under there. I like to kind of wiggle my way into the shape. And then as I settle, just allowing those slow, inevitable changes, those really slow motion transitions as the body begins to realize it's okay. Taking good care to not raise the anxiety in the body by going too far too fast. So you want to go slow. Let's talk about the meridians that are stimulated here in this pose. Half butterfly stimulates the liver, kidney, gallbladder, and urinary bladder meridians. The liver meridian is considered to be the seat of human kindness. So, stimulating it helps us find kindness in ourselves. Stimulation of the kidney meridian calms fear, while bringing energy to the gallbladder meridian helps us to have courage. What a wonderful combination. Kindness, calming fear, and having courage. Let's take a few more breaths in this variation, feeling that hamstring really waking up. After another breath or two, just gently lifting, coming back into a tall spine, and then deciding if you're going to widen the leg. You might bend the knee a little, rock the hip just gently, and then slide the leg wide. Moving back into that forward folding position, protecting your spine as you know how, using props, supporting yourself now. That stretch has moved to the inside of the leg, or wherever it is you're feeling it. You're not doing it wrong if you don't feel it there. If you feel it somewhere else, that just means you have stiffness and tightness in your own unique spaces. In the urinary bladder meridian, stimulating it will help prevent urinary problems, such as difficulty urinating or incontinence or uncomfortable or burning urination. A harmonious urinary bladder meridian also supports the positive emotional attributes of the kidney meridian. As usual, everything is connected. Take a few more deep breaths here. You might notice it's a little more intense on one side or the other. Just kind of nod and say, yep, this is the side that needed it today. Or maybe it was the other side. And if you'd like, you can sit up a little and you'll choose which is safer for your spine, either turning toward the leg with your heart, allowing the back to round a little bit. That's for those of us who don't have any kind of osteoporosis or disc issues. If you need to stay safer, you'll come up and lean sideways, taking that left arm down the left leg. And sometimes that's just a better choice. Always better safe than sorry, since we have to take ourselves into our lives in these bodies today. And I leave my arm down most of the time, but of course, you're welcome to take it over the head. Breathing and settling the body where it feels right to you. This pose also interacts with and supports and affects the lower two chakras, that base foundational chakra, where we come from, our origins. And then the second chakra, that moving into our creativity, our producing of life, our own and sometimes others. Leaning into those ideas as much as you like. Slowing the breath down as much as you can. Maybe 3 or 4 more breaths here. If you're just settling in, remember, you can always stay longer. If you've already had enough, you might have already moved out of the pose. Good job. Slowly coming up to feel that ache. Oh my goodness. And of course, take your time moving carefully onto your back into your tree pose now on the other side. Keeping the knee that's bent in the bent knee position and the leg that's long in the long leg position. Of course, you got to move them around a little bit to get there. Give yourself a minute to remember which leg it was and smile a little bit. And then feel free to take some deep breaths in through the nose and out the mouth as you settle the body on the floor. And maybe begin to listen to the sounds around you. You could name the things that you hear, just a way of practicing mindfulness or presence. Or you could notice how far the sounds are from you, listening to the close ones and then the farther away ones. remembering to support your knee or anything else you need with blankets and blocks. Our next shape is butterfly. We just went through a series of half butterflies, and now we can first just allow the body to move a little, rocking the knees, straightening out that bent knee. And as you're stretching, just feeling the body and maybe beginning to contemplate how you would like to practice butterfly. There are lots of variations. I will just remind you of 3 of them. Of course, the traditional butterfly on our back, soles of the feet together, knees open. Maybe the hands slide behind the head, or maybe they're down beside you wherever the shoulders like. You could move into more of a happy baby variation of butterfly, bringing the knees toward you nice and wide, grabbing hold of toes or ankles. You could let the toes stay together or move into a full happy baby if you love that. Widening the feet, flattening them toward the sky. And of course, for those of you who love seated butterfly, you might roll to one side and sit up, or you could rock yourself up, soles of the feet together, knees apart, rounding into that delicious back stretch. I highly recommend the back positions for those of us who have back issues. Anything really counts here. Whether it's osteoporosis, osteopenia, bulging discs, dislocations, anything, arthritis, I want to recommend the back for most of our bodies. But just in case anybody just loves that seated forward fold and you know what's good for you, trust yourself. Listen to that beautiful body this morning and enjoy. Do what works for you. And I'd like to read to you just a little bit about our butterfly shape. Also remembering the use of props is always welcome. The benefits of butterfly is a good stretch for the back and the groin, opening up the hips. The meridians that are stimulated are the liver and the kidney again. Harmonious liver meridian energy allows anger to transform into kindness. And the kidney is the home of Jing, our essence and our potential. Experiencing our true essence can bring us to a place of kindness and replace fear with wisdom. And we're staying down in those 2 lower chakras. And they're very connected to those ideas of kindness versus anger and finding our essence and our potential, moving away from fear and into wisdom, balancing those chakral energies. And you may want to add just a gentle rocking, nurturing, holding that young self in a motherly embrace. Yin definitely has that motherly, nurturing, essential quality. Yin is a very feminine practice, often said to be influenced by the moon, that feminine energy. So just kind of lean into that for the next few breaths. Let's take 3 more breaths together. Long and slow and deep. slowly transitioning out of the pose. If you chose to be seated, I want to welcome you to lay all the way back for your resting portion here after that butterfly pose. And those of us who stayed on the floor, feel free to rock or maybe just open the knee joints, resting the legs. This is a nice point in class to take a tiny Shavasana, just feeling that shape, allowing the body to fully relax. And it's funny as I say that, I know it never fully relaxes. It's always holding somewhere, taking care, supporting. Maybe just practice the idea of surrender, letting the exhale send some of the tension and the worry out, letting go of a little bit of that fear. Take a long time to begin those little movements of fingers and toes, ankles and wrists. You're welcome to rock. Bring the knees in and make some hip circles. We're going to take a long time, take that mindful, slow journey all the way to hands and knees. So take your time. Feeling your low back, maybe rocking it a little. Some pelvic tilts might feel good. We've really worked down into those lower chakras, those low back spaces. And of course, when you reach your table pose, moving any way that feels right to you, rocking the spine, shifting the weight, moving those hips. This is such a nice orientation for the back. This is where everyone, including those with bone density issues, osteoporosis, the low back disc issues, this is where you can round your back gently, pull the belly button up toward the spine a little bit, get that rocking going. Now there's a pose here that I'd like to offer you called frog pose that we don't do very often, so you can see if you like it. This is a really wide knee pose. So the knees go really wide off the edges of the mat probably. And the toes don't actually come together. The feet stay a little wider apart. And we can come straight down from the shoulder position down toward bending the elbows. And then maybe the elbows go wide. The hands might be toward each other and the head can rest on the floor. So if you see it from a forward-facing position, it actually looks just like a frog. And the hips are pretty high here. Hopefully you can see that. And it really depends on where you want to go. Sometimes it actually feels good to put a block or a bolster under the chest to support that, or between the legs if that would feel good. I wanted to just read to you just a little bit about this pose because it's not one we do very often. So the benefits of frog is a good stretch for your groin and your back. It also is a nice counter pose for a seal pose or saddle pose. And we're going to go into Sphinx in a moment, Sphinx and seal. Sphinx and seal. And frog can sometimes help relax the whole body. I find it difficult to hold, so please feel free to make your transitions into more of a child's pose if you prefer that at any time. And the meridians, again, are liver, kidney, but also spleen and urinary bladder meridians. It can bring a feeling of overall calm to the body. A harmonious liver meridian encourages kindness. A harmonious kidney meridian with additional support from the urinary bladder puts us in touch with our true essence and inner wisdom, while a healthy spleen meridian opens us to our creative potential. And we're just going to take 2 or 3 more breaths. And slowly crawl your way down onto your belly. All the way down, straightening out the legs. They might be a little wide, that's fine. Just relaxing into our belly down position. Maybe humming on those exhales, just letting the body soften. Breathing slowly into the belly, just helping move the diaphragm. And this is our back bending portion of our time together, so you feel free to do what works and feels right to you. I'm going to slowly move into that Sphinx shape to start off, elbows under the shoulders, or maybe a little wider depending on how high you want to go with the shoulders. Now, usually I slide a blanket here under my pelvis. Today I think I'm okay without that. But at any time, if the low back just feels like it's sagging too much and it needs just a little support, sliding a blanket or pillow under the belly can feel really good. I like my legs a little wider apart. You can put yours where they feel right for you. And we'll settle in. This is such an important pose for our yin practice. I don't know that I've ever taught a yin class without a Sphinx pose because it is so important, and I love to have it right around this mid portion of the class because we spend so much time forward facing. This is nice to be a little bit more backward facing. Might not feel like that to you. We'll see what he says about this wonderful back bend. Of course, there are two variations of this pose. You can have the elbows down, or you can lift up higher into that, what we call seal pose, with the arms a little wider, elbows mostly straightened out, just that tiny little bend. You never want to lock any of your joints up there. And sometimes I just go into seal for a minute. Sometimes I'm there a little longer. The benefits is that it helps to re-establish the natural curve of the lumbar spine, and it may help relieve low back pain and stiffness. And with this pose, we're moving into a little bit different orientation with the chakras as well. We still have that base chakra, that base of the spine here. You might be able to feel that pubic bone right near the base of the pelvic floor. But we've moved upward into the stomach chakra, where we have a lot of activation and agency and passion and power. So enjoy that idea. Seal or Sphinx stimulates the stomach, spleen, kidney, and urinary bladder meridians. The stomach is the home of sympathy and compassion. So a harmonious stomach meridian encourages these emotions. And when the stomach meridian is blocked or restricted, we may begin to feel a nervousness that can become moodiness or suspicion or even paranoia, or a sense of violent or explosive behavior. We can also begin to lose our confidence, letting ourselves be too easily influenced by others. The spleen is where we hold the awareness of our own potential. A harmonious spleen meridian helps us see the options in our lives and helps us weigh all our possibilities and motivates us to realize our creative potential. Disharmonies in the spleen meridian lead to excessive worry and indecision. Stimulating the kidney meridians yet again helps to put us in touch with our Jing, our own true essence, encouraging wisdom and gentleness. And a harmonious urinary bladder supports the positive emotional attributes of the kidney meridian, as well as promoting physical health for the bladder. So this is a good one, you guys. And of course, if you've had enough, then you are welcome to come down. If you haven't tried seal and you wanted to, you're welcome to do that. I think I've had about enough of this back bend. I'm going to soften and come on down. Just listen to what your body needs. And we're going to be resting for a good minute here, good full resting pose. Just watching the low back, sensing when the back bend has begun to disappear and the back is starting to feel a little more neutral. And our counter pose, as always, is child's pose. And you can take that traditionally on your hands and knees, or you can roll onto one side and move into seed pose, or all the way onto your back and pull your knees in towards your chest. Those are our 3 wonderful variations for our child's pose. Choosing that mindfully for yourself. Just continuing to breathe deeply into the low back, letting it experience that opening and releasing of the pressure. And we'll be doing a series of poses from our child's pose position. And I'm going to show you the traditional poses first from the knee position, and then I'll show you those poses from the back position because they're both doable here. And you'll get a very similar stretch. So I'm just going to take a nice deep breath, maybe even rock the pelvis, whether you're on your back or your hands and knees. Begin to bring a little bit more hydration and oxygen into that lumbar spine. Now from child's pose, what I'd like to do is sink back but pull the left foot a little bit more forward and push the right knee back. We're moving right down into pigeon or swan. And you'll rest here for some deep breaths. And then we're going to roll onto that hip that's in front of us there, drag the back leg around, swing it over, and move into shoelace pose. Okay, so we're going to hang out in pigeon first, and then we're going to move into shoelace. If you're going to do this on your back, it will look like taking that break that you need. Having the knees pulled in, that's our child's pose on our back. We'll keep the right knee drawn in, stretch the left leg out, maybe all the way down the mat, maybe just with the knee bent. And this will be your pigeon pose. You might even draw the left foot across toward the right hip so you get a little bit more turning in the hip there. And that will be the pose for your pigeon. And then when you're ready, and I'll show you this again when we get there, you can move into your shoelace here, lifting up the long leg, crossing it in front and on top of the knee that was drawn in, coming into that full crisscross position on your back of shoelace pose, okay? So hopefully that makes sense. If you're confused, don't worry, we're gonna go through it together as well. So we're hanging out in pigeon, either on your knee or on your back. And of course, in Yin, we call pigeon pose swan, and that is simply because there is such a different energy in the pose when we practice it in Yin. Simply because we're staying so long. And of course, you could stay up quite high, or you could move lower and lower, even all the way down into what is called sleeping swan or sleeping pigeon, resting the head on hands or a block. This pose, the benefits of this pose is that it stretches the hip flexors, those giant ligaments that cross over our hip bones. It stretches the hip rotators, the groin, and the lumbar spine. And the meridians that are stimulated are the gallbladder, the stomach, the spleen, the kidney, and the urinary bladder meridian, helping us feel our own courage, compassion, creativity, and wisdom. It always helps bring physical health to the urinary tract. This posture energizes and opens the mind and the body, and it's working with the lower 3 of the chakras. That base of power, that space of creativity, and then that personal power, our stomach meridian, so important. We're just going to take about 3 or 4 more breaths here. And as you feel ready, we're going to transition slowly into shoelace. So I'll show you what that looks like from the seated position first. And of course, you could also roll onto your back for this pose instead of staying seated. I'm going to take the leg that was behind me, swing it up and over and lay it on top of the foot beneath, the leg beneath me. And I might need to kind of adjust feet and knees. And I might also want to have a blanket under me if I didn't already have that support. That really helps us keep that lumbar curve. And I'm going to stay up nice and tall for a while and eventually lean into a little bit more of a forward fold, getting that deep hip stretch there. Now, if you're on your back, hopefully you've already creatively figured it out. You will have been holding the left knee in and the right leg is going to lift up. You can push the knees away a little and then cross the thighs. Coming into that crisscross pose, you might grab shins or knees or even slide your fingers to the big toes. Anything that feels right. And if this is just too intense, you're always welcome to place the bottom foot on the floor and maybe rock a little. You don't have to feel like you're missing out. Your body knows what it needs. You can offer that love and kindness to yourself, first of all. And I'd just like to read to you a little bit about that shoelace pose. This is one of my favorites. It's okay if it's not your favorite. We all have different favorites, right? Different things that we need from day to day. So this is what Biff says about shoelace pose. The benefits are that it brings opening to the low back and the hips. Pretty simple. The meridians stimulated here are the kidneys, the liver, the gallbladder meridians. Increasing the flow of chi to the kidney meridian puts us in touch with our true essence, encouraging gentleness and calming fear. Stimulating the liver meridian encourages the flow of chi through the whole body and encourages kindness. And when our gallbladder meridian is in harmony, we can more easily be courageous and decisive. So as usual, our themes today of kindness, courage, and calming fear. Take a nice deep breath. And slowly lift up and lean back. Begin to uncross the legs. If you're seated, you might just move into a wide angle position, or you might lay all the way back. Know what works for you. Laying all the way back feels so good sometimes just because that low back gets to fully relax. We're just going to take a few breaths. Maybe a little gentle movement before we move into the other side. Moving into our pigeon or swan pose. And then, of course, shoelace again. So as you feel ready, you'll move into the right knee. Going forward, if you're seated or on your back, you're going to pull that right knee into the chest. And then the other leg stretches way out, the left leg. Moving into your pose. Breathing deeply into the low back, continuing to massage the kidneys and the meridian, and the kidneys and the liver meridians. All the meridians are affected by all the poses. But those two in particular are just rising to the top today. Using props where you need them. Maybe you try doing it on your back and you feel like you're not feeling anything, so you want to get into a seated position or vice versa. Let's take 3 more breaths here. Beginning to mentally prepare for that shoelace pose. Starting to pull the long leg upward. Feel free to move a little. transitioning into that crisscross position when you're ready. Shoelace pose. Practicing the heart of our yin, which is surrender wherever you can, knowing that the body needs a little bit of holding on. Just kind of shifting the surrender to different areas at different times. And letting the breath help with that, just releasing tension little bits at a time. Every exhale. We'll take 2 more breaths here. And just taking your time to slowly release, and we'll all end up on our backs. Just take your time getting there. We'll finish with our spinal twists. I encourage you to find a moment or 2 or more on your back with your legs long, practicing that shape of Shavasana, that sensation of Shavasana, just feeling slow letting go. Breathing deeply into the belly, and then letting the breath flow quickly out through the nose or the mouth. A couple of times, clearing away. And after you've really felt that softening into the floor and letting go, just beginning to wiggle the toes again and starting to set up for our spinal twist. I'm going to bend both knees and rock a few times. I always want you to know that your twist is up to you. I'm just going to guide us in a knee over twist, which is a little bit intense for some people. If you'd prefer, you can pull the knees in, roll them to one side, all those beautiful variations. I am going to scoot the hips just a little to the right, stretch the left leg down the mat, pull the right knee into the chest, take hold with the opposite hand and begin to roll it over the body. The toes might slide naturally behind the knee of the long leg. The long leg can bend a little as you just rock on that lower hip, the hip on the floor. And the shoulder needs to rise here as well. If you'd like to have your shoulders both on the floor, allow the knee to come off the ground. If you'd rather have the knee on the floor, let the shoulder lift up. And the arm behind you is up to you how far you stretch back. Sometimes I need to have the elbow bent and the hand just resting on my side. Sometimes I'm okay to reach all the way back. See which one you love and allow it to settle in. And since this is our final shape here, I'd like to read what Biff has to say about the spinal twist. Lots of variations. The benefits of a spinal twist are that it rotates and stretches the whole spine. It also relaxes the mind and opens the heart. Many people feel strong emotions during spinal twist, particularly at the end of their practice. You may feel the twist releasing issues that have been held in your first and second chakras, letting them move up into your fourth. that heart area, to come into the light of the heart and of love. This is an excellent pose to do just before final relaxation. It stimulates the gallbladder again, encouraging us to be courageous, helping us to be reasonable, rational, make good decisions. Just take one more breath on this side. Gently rolling back onto your spine, letting the knees come up, feet back to the floor again, scooting the hips a little to the left, stretching out the right leg, lifting the left knee in toward the belly, taking hold with the opposite hand and rolling over into your twist. And this is where I would like to start our loving kindness practice. We've been moving this direction throughout our class today. And I love everyone's different way of coming at this meditation, this practice of loving kindness. So I'll offer you the one from this book today. And I will guide you out of your twist eventually, but you don't have to stay. If I haven't brought it up yet and you're ready to move to Shavasana, you're welcome to do that. The heart of Yin is loving kindness, he says, compassion and acceptance, the energy of the mother. Loving kindness is a state of unconditional love, a place from which we can give our love and best wishes to ourselves and to others without judgment or expectation. In the Pali language, the word for this is metta, M-E-T-T-A. The metta practice is where we see things as they are. We see ourselves and others clearly. With acceptance, our feelings of separation falling away. From the practice of loving kindness develops compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. Although loving kindness and compassion are subtly different concepts and are often practiced separately, I like to practice both of them here together. We begin by directing this loving kindness and compassion at ourselves. And we also know somewhere within us that any loving kindness and compassion we show to ourselves, we also show to all beings everywhere. Go ahead and adjust out of your twist. If you haven't already, moving into your favorite Shavasana. If we understand the Taoist way of seeing the world, we know that we are all connected and the same chi flows through us all. Metta is a way of practicing this knowing. In metta practice, we use a repeated phrase or mantra to ask for health and peace. The practice always begins by asking for health and peace for yourself. And these are the metta phrases I use most often. Feel free to repeat them to yourself after I say them. May I be free of fear and harm. May I be happy just the way I am. May I be at peace with whatever comes. And may I learn to live gently in the softness of my own heart. And I'll just repeat those one more time. May I be free of fear and harm. May I be happy just the way I am. May I be at peace with whatever comes. And may I learn to live gently in the softness of my own heart. It is good to repeat this mantra until you can feel compassion, acceptance, and forgiveness for yourself. This can happen right away, or it can take much longer. It's important to remember that this isn't a selfish practice. We know that when we bring happiness to ourselves, we make the world, the whole world, happier. Only when we feel compassion for ourselves can we start to take that compassion out into the world. The next step is to change the wording slightly by asking that someone close to us also receive the benefits of our desire to end their suffering. And we might say something like this: may all my family be free of fear and harm. May they be happy just as they are. May they be at peace with whatever comes. And may they live gently in the softness of their own hearts. And when you feel that your loving kindness and compassion flows to the people that you love, you can begin to broaden the circle of compassion to others, spreading it outward, maybe even including those who are a challenge. And finally, adding the entire world, we say, may all beings be free of fear and harm. May we all be happy just the way we are. And may we all be at peace with whatever comes. May we all live gently in the softness of our own hearts. Bringing your hands to your heart, maybe laying them on top of your heart or palm to palm, thumbs touching your heart. Feel that love starting the center of your being and spreading out, connecting each of us here practicing together and all of our families and friends and all the world. Take a wonderful deep breath in. Hold on to it as long as you like, and when you're ready to let it go, breathing out nice and slow, beginning to move again, slowly and gently waking up.